All right. Happy to be joined by my next guest on Sports Card Nation again. Although I will say again because he wasn't on Sports Card Nation. He was my first ever co host on the Breaking Cardboard show, the once a month live show that we have started doing, 2 episodes into the books. But this gentleman was the first ever co host, along with our guest. Dr. Beckett. So he's never been on Sports Card Nation per se, but he's not unfamiliar. But thought it was time to have him on his own show with his own spotlight. Just me and him. And I won't make him wait any longer. But Corey Donovan, more affectionately known as YamWax, welcome to Sports Card Nation.
Hey, John. Thanks, man. What a distinct honor to get to join the show, but especially to have been your first guest host and to do so with Dr. Beckett. When I got that call from you, it just floored me. And then, you told me that I couldn't tell anybody about it because, the show was not really announced yet. Dr. Beckett was going to be a surprise guest. I was at my kid's birthday party and I just wanted to tell somebody, but I didn't know if that meant like nobody, or just like nobody in the hobby. So I zipped it, but I was like, my knees were shaking.
Well, you passed the test. I just did that to see if how trustworthy. No, I'm just kidding. But no, it's fun. One of the reasons I had you sort of keep it on the down low was because it was just so preliminary. I hadn't done it yet. I wanted to make sure, Dr. Beckett was a go. I know he gave me a verbal yes, but I just wanted to make sure everything was all the T's were crossed and the I's dotted. And you're a great person in this hobby and one of the first guys, honestly, when I was thinking of the format and I wanted it to not just be me and a guest, but kind of three of us in there. And actually the next Breaking Cardboard I'll announce is going to be about 5 guys. So
wow.
a little teaser there. There's going to be a little bit of speaking of wrestling, a little bit of Royal Rumble-ish, if you will, but be fun. So that's the show can change. But when I came up with the idea that was really born out of, I don't want to even take the credit for it, Corey. There was a lot of other people saying, hey, we love the show. It comes out on Fridays. It's not live. Have you ever thought about, you do some special event live ones, like for the episode 100, I did a live version of this. For another episode, I did another one. But they're like, why don't you do more of that? And I'm like, I heard a couple times that, and I'm like, I don't know. People are doing plenty of good stuff already in that niche, and then I got some more call for it. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to do it. But I don't want to do it every week. We got plenty of guys that are known for that. I'll just do it once a month, little one-off, if you will. And then, I thought, who's going to be the first guest? And I thought, man, it's a guy I've gotten to know very well. And, I call a friend. I'm like, I'm going to see if Dr. Jim will do it. And then when I was thinking, all right, we're going to go with the co-host format. I have just a few names on that list. And you're right there. And I said, I'm going to get Yam on here. I think that just with Dr. Beckett. And I just, I try to think of combos that sort of fit, even with the second episode, with Jeremy being a hockey guy predominantly and Chris Carlin from Upper Deck. I try to do stuff that sort of makes sense and will sort of have better flow to it. I'm not sure I'm going to always get it necessarily right, but I try. And
well, it mixes it up in not contrast, but in addition to what you bring to the hobby. And you have such an incredible network due to this legendary output of content that you've created over the years, which I just have reverence for. But you mix that together with interesting co-hosts, and you can bring these people together. And I think and then you add the great comments, like in our live that we did. We had some really supreme comments from the chat, and that just brings this other element into it. So it was like it was a really interesting combination of things. And like I said, it was just an honor, man. But no, I'm looking forward to talking today. Kind of getting in depth in that conversation. I tried to keep things a little bit evergreen, like where I could ask questions that anyone could go back and look back at that podcast and think this is some interesting questions to Dr. Beckett. But in this one, I know we're going to touch on some current topics, but also kind of get into
well, this is for you. Like that show, not that you can't talk about a guest host can't interjects, and you did an awesome job with that. I love that. But I want, I knew then. I even told you we're going to have you on Sports Card Nation. I want to do a show where it's you're the guest and not the co-host necessarily. Not that I had a problem with that, but you also, I believe everyone should have their own light as well. With the comments, you make a great point with some of the comments from the chat. One thing I like about a live show, two things I like with doing that show is it's live, right? There's no take two, so you got to try to be on top of your game. It creates a little more, I don't want to say sense of urgency. That might be a little too dramatic, but you really got to be focused, and keeping an eye on the chats coming in, which ones you want to play off of and put on screen. And one thing, like the tagline of this show, the hobby is the people. I mean, all of us are an integral part of the hobby as a whole, as individual people. And so I love that interaction. I love, while someone may not be on the screen at the same time with me or you or anyone else, I want them to still feel like they're part of the dialogue, the discussion. It's not going to happen necessarily as much on this show, being not live, but I do get a lot of feedback. That's good. But I wanted to do, in doing 2 episodes now, the one thing I do really, really enjoy is that interaction, seeing real time comments and reactions to things going on screen. And you don't get that when you tape interviews. We're doing this now. We're not going to, I'll get feedback after the show, which is, I welcome that and invite that all the time, 100%. But to get it in real time is something about that you can't sort of put a price tag on. I really enjoy, doing the show. Someone asked me, matter of fact, a few days ago, Corey, they're like, hey, are you going to do more? Like, are you going to do, are you going to go to two Fridays a month or 3? And I told them, no, I'm locked in one Friday. The only thing I could ever see happening, if there's a schedule conflict where, let's say it's the second Friday of every month, I just can't do it that day. Something come up, or maybe move it, but it's still going to be once a month. It's just, we'll try to shoot for that second Friday. But I think, doing a lot of shows too. You mentioned some of the content, this show, I'm part of the Hobby Hotline crew, now Breaking Cardboard, Hobby Quick Hits, which is the Monday show. That's just me, shorter, one topic. I just don't want, and we're going to talk about this with you too on the show. There's stuff outside of cards, outside of content that I still got to tend to and enjoy and leave time for. And so for me, that's really one of the reasons I probably didn't do that live show for as long as I did, even though certain people, were kind of requesting it. I kind of held off, and then I finally relented. I'm glad I did.
Yeah.
But once a month, I think, for me anyway, is going to be where I'll keep it at. And I always say, if it's bad or it doesn't get downloaded or no people are watching, then maybe it's 0 times a month. But go ahead. I
was just going to say it's smart. Once a month is really smart, John, I think. And, to jump in, you could always increase the volume if you wanted to, but once a month might be just right. But I also think we do have our other obligations, but we're always seeking, at least something that's important for me, is seeking new adventures in the hobby. And that could be, a new player to collect, a new release of cards for your favorite player, your teams that you chase, but it's not just about the cardboard, and the plastic, right? Like some of these adventures can be what we do in the hobby, how we operate, trying new things, maybe trying to sell on a new platform. And as a content creator like you, I imagine it's fun to keep it fresh, and to create this new show is, got to be part of that as well.
Yeah. I'm getting older, so anything that can keep me on my toes, and I mean the hobby news cycle now, if that isn't keeping you on your toes, I don't know what will. I'm old enough to remember, Corey, years ago. I've said this, more than once on this show. You could go away for the hobby for a year, just literally drop your cards wherever you're standing, go away for a year, come back, and really not miss a whole heck of a lot, and catch up rather quickly. You can't go away for 2 hours now and come back. You got to do a bunch of reading and research and this story and go down this rabbit hole, and the hobby's just changing quick. It keeps me kind of on my toes, which, like you said, it keeps it enjoyable. I don't necessarily like every story that happens, granted, but the news cycle, just in the volume that it happens and at the speed it happens in, it keeps me active, keeps me kind of focused, and can't rest on your laurels and take a real day off. So it's fun. It's fun, and it's a different hobby, but it's still a great hobby, like Dr. Puckett, who we talked about earlier, would say. And if you're not having fun in the hobby, like I always say myself, got to reassess what you're doing and maybe change it up. And nothing wrong with that. You can change it up. You've done that, I know, in your collecting style. We're to talk about some of that as well. I know some of your hobby history from getting to know you, but for those maybe listening, McCoy, that maybe hearing you for the first time, the few that might be, kind of go like your background, how it began, kind of how you came back, and all that fun stuff.
Well, John, I looked back at your all these incredible guests that you've had on the show, and I feel a little devoid. That you've got guys with amazing podcasts, you've got individuals working in the hobby, leading hobby companies, leading businesses, and different things like that. And I'm even owning, say, an LCS. I have none of that. But what I might represent to people is your classic dad who's come back into the hobby, that collected a kid. I'm in my mid 40s, and I came back and did all that. But I think for those that is like, oh, boring, we don't want to hear about the dads. I do have some interesting collecting angles that I've gone down that I think appeal to a wide variety of people. So we'll get there, guys. But for me, it's that I came back and I'm really enthusiastic about this hobby. I love it. And like you, it's all about the people and the community, the conversations. So I've just dove into all that. But let's go back to the 80s. I'm that classic kid buying, just opening packs, trying to find another Barry Bonds. And I love to just keep, some of these old cards raw like that, just because it brings back the memories, really, to just hold it.
Don't forget the smell. They still have a scent to them too that takes you back. They do,
yeah. And this is Skinny Berry, right? So chasing the killer bees.
There is two different berries. I've said that. There's 7 5/8 berry, and then there's 7 1. That's hat size for you that don't get the inside joke. But go ahead.
Oh, totally, man. And so I'm not even a baseball collector anymore. I did hit that 1990s 4 strike, and I got to middle school in the early 90s and sort of dipped out of the hobby quite a bit. But I still collecting a little, and then the strike just kind of wiped me out. I never really have gone to baseball. There's some exciting young players exciting me these days, but this was my guy, Kirby Puckett, and this is the first single that I ever bought. This exact card. It's still in that yellowed old top loader, all cracked and beaten up. I always keep that on my desk because that to me was one of my happiest days. I got to go to an LCS for the first time instead of just buying packs at my little local drugstore. And this had to be the one, the Kirby Puckett rookie, because I'm from Minneapolis and he's a god here, and won the World Series, a couple of them with us and stuff. So that was fun. And this is another kind of fun story. This is the only card that I really sold when I was a kid. So this is a great buyback that I had. That
for those listening, it was McGuire rookie. Oh well.
Oh yeah,
we could debate that. Yeah, we could debate that. Some people will say the 87s is rookie. Most people, myself included, will say it's the 85 tops.
Absolutely. But this McGuire USA was so hot at the time.
Yeah.
And it had gone up so much in value for just a kid that, had traded into one with some of my buddies or something. And I wanted a 10-speed to get around town, to get to, basketball practice and not have to have my parents drive me or whatever. And so I went and sold this for $200 raw, because they were just, people would just take them at the local card shop or whatever, and then use that money to buy a 10-speed. Well, raw, a copy probably just as good as this one, I went back and bought for $4 3 years ago, just at a local card shop. So I thought that was a pretty good trade. There's a lot of time in there, but I got great use out of that bike. And I never really sold another card until I did get back into the hobby, right around 2018. And my kid pulled me back in. That happened with Pokemon.
Yeah.
he's currently a fourth grader, but at the time he was like first, second grade. All his buddies played Pokemon after school. It's still a thing. And he wanted better cards. He'd bought a few packs at the store, but he's like, I want to. My buddies have these cool cards. So I'm like, well, let's go to a card shop. I'm sure they have them. Looked it up. Went to a shop. Half the shop had Pokemon. The other half had sports cards, and it just like lit something up in my brain. Like, wow, I haven't even really thought about this for years. And I completely abandoned him to look in the Pokemon and was just like diving through basketball card boxes and just thought it was so cool because I never even got the chance to collect basketball cards. The little town I was in only had packs of baseball cards for the most part. And so I'm looking at football, basketball cards. And that day I bought my first graded card ever. And that was just Kevin Garnett rookie.
Oh,
it's not the greatest
card.
Yeah, it's not a high-end card. It's a PSA 9 and it's slabbed. And I just thought it was neat. I was learning about grading again. I thought, well, I got to get a KG because, again, I'm Minneapolis. And so I keep the KG and the Kirby at my desk all the time. But suddenly we're back in it, and I'm trying to like connect with my son. So we're collecting Pokemon cards together and then also introducing him to collecting, some basketball cards. And I'm not very learned at that point, but, I'm just enthusiastic going through dollar boxes, $10 boxes, looking in the showcases, just going to a few local LCSs at that point. And then I start looking for podcasts because I'm like, this is really fun. I want to learn more, and digging into places like Cardboard Chronicles, where they're talking about the really cool stuff, jambalayas and PMGs, and then trying to find any content that I can. And it just seemed like I was totally wrong, but it seemed like everybody was so enthusiastic about these 90s inserts that I'm like, oh, that's got to be past its prime. So I didn't start with that, even though that's probably the cards I would have liked the most because I watched a ton of basketball in the 80s and 90s. I went vintage because I revere kind of history and legends. And I was picking up, George Mikan rookie, Bill Russell. I kind of made a checklist of all the GOATs that I'd want to have a card for. It was a pretty good decision because that stuff was underpriced too. Everything was. But, I really wish I kind of would have gone with my interests, which would have been the 80s, 90s basketball, Jordan. I'm a big LeBron fan, but I never went that heavy into basketball just because I thought it already popped off so much. And I was obviously totally wrong on that.
Yeah, but you still did all right getting those vintage Hall of Famers as well before they went, as we saw that stratosphere rocket up as well as everything else. So you can't win them all, but if you win most of them, right, that's the important thing. One thing I want to say about Kirby Puckett, I'm a New York City kid. Kirby Puckett I think he was revered by a lot of collectors and sports fans. Just played the game the right way. Not a lot of trash talking. Not very outspoken. One thing, he's not a physical specimen like let's say a Bo Jackson. Yet could still hit home runs. That could still track balls down in the outfield and crash into the fence and rob people. Still bat 300 and hit a bunch of home runs and just kind of looked like an ordinary guy, not I always use the Bo Jackson compare and like inspire people like, man, look at what that guy's doing like that. And maybe I can, as a kid, maybe I can make it, and just great player, Hall of Famer, rest in peace. And I wasn't a Twins guy per se, but I was a Kirby guy just the same, just because of all those things I just said. But go ahead.
As a local, I'll tell you, he was always having fun. He always had a smile on his face, a wink for the crowd, throwing balls to the kids in the crowd. And we would wait for him after the game and have him sign our bats or gloves for Little League. I never had him sign cards for some reason. I didn't even think about it. But, I always wanted him to sign. I had a signed glove, I had a signed bat, and I'd bring those and I'd, think that gave me extra power in the outfield or something. But, one thing that's cool about letting people know what you collect is like people just sometimes, buddies will send you cards. Yeah. That's a classic Kirby. But my friend Travis painted on that and painted Yam on it. That was pretty cool. But I think the first time I figured out that like letting people know what you're collecting can be a good idea was with when I was trying to chase down a George Mikan rookie. The 1948 Bowman basketball set is the first true basketball set of cards. And they're really cool because they're like a different form factor. Yeah, I've got some here. So I don't have the Mikan with me. It's in the vault, but that's the another 48 Bowman card. I like to keep some loose ones available just to like hold them because they're such basketball doesn't have those true vintage cards, right? Like these are a weird form factor, a little bit smaller, really kind of stark red and blue colors, not a lot of coloration, but there's something really artistic about them at the same time. They remind you
Yeah.
of classic baseball cards. So I
Yeah.
just think
It really just focuses on the subject on the card. It really draws you in to them. It's not necessary. It's not in action. It's a portrait. So you get to see them sort of in resting mode, if you will, and get a kind of a glimpse at who they really are, and like you said, the size of them. Yeah. It's
well, the Mikan is in action, actually. It's a shot of him kind of driving with the ball. And so this is the one that I'm showing right now is the 96 kind of throwback with the auto on it. So I managed to grab one of those too. But so I was going around the Twin Cities, like looking for a 48 Mikan and asking every dealer in town. I'd go to the shows, I'd walk the shows. Hey, got any Mikans? Because I really wanted one. I kind of made a goal to try to get one locally because I figured since he played with the Minneapolis Lakers, I'd be able to find one somewhere in Minnesota. I just thought it'd be a fun little adventure. And boy, I ended up totally striking out in the end. But people got to know me as like the Mikan guy, and I'd show up at LCSs and people would have just cards for me. They weren't expensive or anything, but they're like, hey, I've got a Prism Mikan refractor that I just pulled. And thought of you, so I just set that aside for you. And it'd just be like a random bunch of throwback cards, but it's really fun, and you get to know, like, because you're known for something, people are then trying to help you towards your goal or thinking of you when they run across, just cards they're happy to part with. But over I ended up picking up just a variety of things that way, a Pep and a Wheaties, and some Hall of Fame like throwback patch cards and stuff, and a lot of fun stuff.
Probably stuff you didn't even, probably some stuff you didn't even know existed that other people had or picked up thinking of you. And that's a great point too, Corey. It's the beauty of the hobby, that community, and people kind of look out for each other. With me, my guy's Jackie Robinson, and every so often someone will send me some. And a lot of times I don't have them. There's stuff I don't have. Every once in a blue moon, honestly, is something I didn't know existed. I got something today from my friend Brad Bethune, the Texas card dude. His father recently passed away. Rest in peace, Mr. Bethune. And he went through his dad's collection, and he found he had a bunch of coins that were sold in Los Angeles, I think 1995. Still says $2.99 on it, and really sharp looking coin. I think I put it. Oh, it's right here. For those listening, won't see it, but little glare there. But
that's really cool.
Yeah, just a cool piece that I didn't even know was around, and so now it'll go in the jacket collection. And so telling that story made me think about that, and that was just today. And I've had a young man from Moco draw, a 19, I'm missing the 48 leaf Jackie, unfortunately, and I'm very unlikely I'm going to be acquiring it anytime in the near future. But this young man, Mr. Max, with colored pencils, drew and colored in a 48 leaf Jackie. Looks great. Wrote 101 on the back and a little note to me, and sits on my desk here in a acrylic showcase, along with another card that we're going to talk about during the show as well. And that's stuff like that, Corey. Like you can't put a price on that. That card that young man drew and colored in, you're not going to find it any comps on it. It's not going to be on eBay. But what it means to me and the significance of it, I don't want to find it on eBay. And it's those stories, right? To me, and I'm sure you feel the same way with Mikans and other things, Kirby's. That stuff, you can't put a price on it. There's going to be stuff you're not going to sell. It's going to, whether it's on your desk or in a case behind your desk or wherever you display it, it's going to have that sentimental, priceless value. And that stuff, I don't think we always talk about that enough. You see plenty of pictures on social media of those 5, 6, 7-figure cars. Look what I just saw. Look what I just bought. And that's great too. I'm not besmirching that. That's that all is part of the hobby. But I love to see some of that handmade, custom made stuff, because the detail that goes into some of that stuff with the artwork. We've seen card art take off in the last few years as well, and the detail that goes into this to those works. And I've had Card Killer and Donnie B make me special cards that are in this case on my desk here. One day I'm going to just do like a live video of this case. I talk about it every so often, but it's that stuff that they would take the time out of their day to think of me and design a card with a player that I'm fond of and give it to me and say, hey, thanks for what you do. And this is for you. And you've gotten it too. And I've given stuff as well. And I enjoy both. You know, I love getting those kind of cards like that where someone puts in that time and work. It's not off a printing press, 10 sheets a minute. And it is something about that. And I love also giving stuff to other people as well, and just sort of being an ambassador, an advocate for the hobby. And you can't put a price on things like that. And you're not going to find, these cards that we get like that. We're not going to find those at the National in the showcase. They're going to be in our own personal showcase. And when we look at them, we'll remember who did it and why they did it, and that you meant enough to them for them to even take the time to do that for you. And it's something.
It's really amazing. There's the kids making them, exploring art. That's a cool thing, but showing appreciation. And we really do have some true artists in the hobby. Some guys who do amazing work. You mentioned them: Card Killer, Donnie B, Optimus Volts. The list goes on and on. In that case, all the people or the people.
I usually don't try to name them because I'm going to leave somebody off, and they're going to be like, "Hey, you didn't. What about me?" So, but yeah, there's plenty. The Project 70, Project 2020 artists. Many I've had half of those on the show, and like you said, I think those folks are inspiring. Like you touched on. That younger generation to, hey, I can do this. I can design cards someday. Let me work on my skill now. Art is a skill. Art can be a trade, and you never know what can come from it. And it's great. I've always said cards are works of art, even before the card art thing really exploded. Some of those some of the cards you even talked about on the vintage side of basketball have a art feel. The 53 top set, even before that, a lot of them were portraits and stills. And so, photography is an art. I always say that too. We think, well, it has to be, watercolors or oil or acrylic paint. No, photography is a lost art too. How many times we see, I know someone was complaining about one of this week's Tops Now card. They got, I believe it was Lourdes Gurriel, and the shot was not a very good one. It doesn't show his number, and it doesn't show his face. And they were like, ragging on Tops, like, hey, couldn't you get a better photo to use for that Tops Now card? Like, I wanted to buy it, and then I saw the photo, and I'm not buying it now. Now, maybe a little bit nitpicky there, to each their own, but I did see the photo after I read the rant. I'm like, well, let me see this card. I got to see someone. And it wasn't in all due respect, it wasn't a great shot. It would have been, if easy for me to play armchair Tops. I probably would have said, hey, do we got a better photo where we see more of him, or at least a number? Like, it just, and, but sometimes, they got deadlines. They're trying to get the cards out quick. There's a lot of other variables. And so I'll give them a little bit of a pass, but photography is a lost art too. I don't say a lost art, but photography is art as well. I've had Nick Wasika on the show, who's a sports photographer. And I mean, they're there a couple hours before the game, doing research, learning numbers if they don't already know them. They got a list of subjects that they're assigned to capture in action. And, that action happens quick. If you're not on the ball, it's like hitting a fastball, right? Even when it's coming, batters still strike out. So even though they know who their subjects are, and I got to get some action shots today, maybe they don't catch all the shots, or maybe, some of the action's a little further away and they don't zoom in. So there's an art to that too. And so I always say sports cards in general are all pieces of art. But when you see some of the customs that take it to that next level, it's just always impresses me. I don't have the patience. I don't have the patience for that. I'd probably screw it up and then like throw it away, and then where they probably do that too, and then they start over and they're perfect. I just would get frustrated and then let it go, and just that'd be the end. So my dad is an artist. My son can draw very well. In fact, he's a huge Beatles kid, and he can do Beatles the portraits of the 4 Beatles like freehand. It's crazy, and I can barely draw a stick figure. So the gene skipped me, and my son got it. And there's a talent to that. As someone who can't draw and can't do any of that stuff, I appreciate those that can and those that do.
Well, we all have our art, right? We all have our genius. I'm still trying to figure out exactly what that is, but you're right. Photography, very much so, is art. I agree. I love great photography. I spend a vast amount of time, like at county fairs, state fairs, when you go through the little photo area and there's all the different types of art here in Minnesota. It could be like corn beaded art and crazy stuff, but the photography is tremendous when it's great. And that's no different on cards. I think of a couple sets, like right away, the 1976 basketball set has amazing portraits in it. My favorite Kareem Abdul-Jabbar card, maybe some of my favorite photography of portraiture at least, is from that 76 set. I don't have one with me, but it's at PSA. Yep. But a lot of it is just the composition. You talked about the perfunctory things, like we need to get the number, his face. A true photographer would say, like, that stuff's not important if you could get some like moody shot of a shadow over the shoulder. Now, as sports fans, we don't want that. You have to hit the numbers, so that then limits your art too, right? But there's cool stuff. I was just looking at a card in front of me. I was gifted this card. It's a Will Smith, jamming with Will Smith card. And it's just like, you could not have a better shot of Will Smith, kind of just looking sideways, holding the basketball. He's at the All-Star game. And
getting jiggy with it? Is he getting jiggy with it? Right?
He's about to get jiggy with it for sure. And I love it, man. I love it. There's cool stuff, no matter if you're doing sports, you're doing, non-sport, all that kind of stuff. There's really neat art. You talked about being, generous in the hobby. I had a really good lesson for that, like right off the bat. So my son and I are collecting Pokemon cards together, a lot of first edition stuff when it was really cheap. We just go through dollar boxes or nickel boxes really and pull out any first edition Pokemon cards. And those kind of went nuts shortly after that. So he's got a nice stash of not perfect cards, but a couple hundred first edition 1999 base set cards. So it's really cool. But we happened to just stumble across a couple of these. It's a 1997 Tomy scratch pack. These are super, super scarce. And so I found a couple of those and inspired me. Like the art just looks so cool. They were like, hey, let's buy these. They're like $5 each, which is insane. They go for a few hundred a piece now. But wow. Yeah. And I was like, well, they're only in Japan. And then I got super hooked on like vintage Pokemon and the really old like Japanese Pokemon stuff, because I love history and I love art, and has kind of all that in spades. But so I ended up importing this, where like nobody else in the country, or only a couple other people, were really buying any of this stuff. So I'm importing it from Europe, from Asia, Japan mostly. And I end up with like, I don't know, 10 booster boxes of this stuff, but no one else like cares about it in the country. Not even the Pokemon collectors even know about it. So I'm like, this isn't any fun. You don't have a community if you're like one of, 3 people collecting. The other 2 people aren't even very social, So it was fun to have this like full set of Pokemon cards, to have a bunch of these. But I just started like mailing them to other guys that I interacted with, guys and girls that I interacted with in the Pokemon community. Just be like, hey, you want a couple of packs? And I'd send out a few packs, and then they'd open them, kind of learn about them, get into them. Maybe they're buying some, but we're chatting about it. And suddenly, like I ended up giving away half of everything that I'd ever bought. And I don't, I think it was the greatest decision just in general, because, then I have other people that share this passion for it. And on top of it, I think it helped build the market. That wasn't my intention. It was more just like, I'm not going to sell this stuff, so I'm just going to give it to other people. And in doing so, like, it kind of created a market for the product too. So, especially in the rare stuff like that, sharing with other people can get people enthusiastic. And then the best part is the community, but the bonus is that there's a real marketplace for it now.
You created awareness. The people that you sent it to probably saw it for the first time when they received it. They're like, what is this? And they researched it, and you created that. It's not an artificial buzz; it's a genuine
Mm-mm.
buzz. But if people don't know about something, then they find out about it. That's how something can sort of take off or garner interest. And I think that's important. I think it's important that you're sharing your love and passion for something with others, and it's driving their passion for it. Sometimes we don't know we have a passion for something till we do it, or it's in our hands and we see it,
Mhm.
feel it, touch it, type of thing. And so I think there's something to be said about that. You seem to have, and this is one thing I definitely wanted to touch on during today's episode. You have a knack, and it's a skill. I don't think it's luck. I don't think there's luck involved. You have a skill for kind of finding things before they get big. It's easy to find something after someone else has already, oh, check this out. Look at this. You sort of get there before everyone, if it's like a race, you sort of get there first. Kind of talk about that mindset, when that started. Is it like a conscious effort to do that, or just seems to work out that sort of way?
I don't know that's a conscious effort. Not usually. Maybe when I get bored, I'm not really thinking about like how do I get ahead of the market. I'm just kind of thinking about like what else is out there? What am I not thinking
Yeah.
about, right? And so I was doing basketball cards. I started collecting football cards. I didn't really want to do baseball. I did a little bit of hockey just because our shared friend Jeremy Lee is so enthusiastic about it. I picked up PC and Nathan McKinnon, and my oldest son is like 24, and it's a way for me to connect with him. I collect that little bit of hockey, but then after that, it's like, where do we go? I really like the form factor of cards. I like having these 3.5, 2.5 by 3.5 pieces of cardboard, slab it, and you still have that kind of conformity in your collection, easy to store, and all that. And I'm like, well, why not tennis? I had started looking into that last summer. And like I loved playing tennis. I loved like these classic matches with Agassi and Sampras and all that stuff, and then revere the current goats like Federer and Nadal, now Djokovic, but his stuff is
Yeah.
insanely expensive. Serena, of course, she's like one of the best, probably possibly the best female athlete of all time. And so I saw these like obvious goats that were tens of dollars at most to buy some of those cards that are now worth thousands of dollars. But I wasn't like trying to get ahead. I'm just like, oh, that'd be really cool to have a Federer card, and they're so cheap. Then I'm like, why don't I buy a couple of them? And so then that worked out great because now I can keep one and sell one. But I wasn't even thinking that. They're just like at $20 for a Federer rookie that's limited and numbered. Yeah, of course I'm going to grab a couple of those. And going through the paces of doing, say, football and basketball first, you started to learn about rarity and the importance of that. And I was networking with some guys that really cared about those things. So, that helped me where I wasn't just buying all the base cards of those tennis stars. I was trying to buy the elite cards, trying to find out like, okay, what is their best card? And like, let's go after that instead of just buying, just the easiest card to buy for a couple bucks. Like, let's buy the best one for $20, $30. And so I was doing, kind of taking that approach. But even then, like looking back on it, if I was thinking monetarily, I would have bought 100 Federer cards. I was just thinking like it'd be cool to have a couple Fed cards, couple Serenas, whatever. I definitely wish I'd bought more, but so you go through that pace, and then it's like, well, what else is out there? Entertainment cards, and so then like, why not? Like they're just really fun to have to. I don't know, what do I have in front of me? I've got, say, a Kurt Cobain card, 1994. This is one I actually just pulled with Donnie B on a live. The 1995 rock card, or 1994 rock cards. It's Kurt Cobain's rookie, and that's one that I just recently chased after. But like, Smells Like Teen Spirit came out 30 years ago this past week, and that was so important, man. Kurt Cobain. I was in high school, and when he passed, unfortunately, rest in peace. That was one of the biggest events, kind of my generation, and to be able to like fit that into the way that I like to collect, which is collecting cards. Like other people might go out and collect the CD or try to pick up an autograph poster or something. But for me, I like trading cards. So I'm like, I want to get a Kurt Cobain card, and I ended up picking up a Nirvana card too. That's from 1995 Panini. It was just a great. I talk about photography. Like this
Yeah,
1990
great
Panini
shot.
shot with Dave Grohl is just an amazing
Yeah.
image, and that's that same set that has the 1995 Snoop Dogg rookie in it. So I don't think I'm necessarily like trying to think about being ahead in the process that I do it. It's just like what else is there? What else interests
Yeah.
me?
Your
Yeah.
interests wind up taking you there. Speaking of that Nirvana card you just held up, would that be considered Dave Grohl's rookie? Like, I know it's not. Brains was the year earlier, just him on the card. Now, would we call this Dave Grohl's rookie card?
I think we'd call 1994 both Kurt and Grohl's rookie. I don't have the Grohl rookie yet. I
Oh,
didn't
he's in
pull
that.
that out of a
Okay.
pack, but yeah, I don't know. It's like that's a weird thing with non-sport stuff. I would call it a rookie. The non-sport, that's an interesting question, John. Like talking about rookies when it comes to things like non-sport, when it comes to wrestling, these guys don't have cards every year. The first
Yeah.
year that, yeah,
Yep.
the first year that Cobain had a card, unfortunately, was the year that he passed.
Yeah.
I do like this card in that he was probably alive when it was released, but it was shortly after that he left us. But so many people, their rookie is definitely not from their rookie year, their first year being
Yeah.
pro necessarily.
It's their
But I think
first
of the
card
card, when I call something
produced.
a rookie card, I'm calling the card the rookie, the first, not their first professional year, right? So,
Yeah.
but it is hard. Like, so, okay, this is an Argentina card in Spanish. There's more leeway where I don't know that, that might be called an XRC in sports if there happened to be some like random Luca released in Europe 2 years earlier before his NBA debut. But in non-sport, it's just kind of whenever the first card pops up seems to be a rookie. Some people might also call this a rookie too because it's the first North American release in English and everything. But why should that matter?
Yeah.
I don't know. I just think they're both cool cards, and I'm glad to have a couple early Nirvana cards. But yeah, other things come up like, okay, parody cards. A Garbage Pail Kids card that depicts, I don't know, Will Smith or something. If Will Smith had before his rookie, he had a Garbage Pail Kid that didn't call him Will Smith, maybe called him like Bill Mrs. or I don't know, some just ridiculous name they come up with. I generally don't consider that a rookie. I consider it a parody.
Yeah.
It's not using his full name, not using his picture. So you do get into these debates even with that. Like, is that actually their card? And so it's really a fun adventure, and you think you often know like what the rookie is, and then you find out it was something much earlier,
Yeah.
like the Panini Snoop Dogg. I don't know if I have one. Here we go. Panini, for a long time, a lot of people this wasn't on the radar, the 1995 Snoop. And it's a sticker again, so like, does a sticker count? Well, it's a sticker that's like the size of a full-size card. So I think people accept it more, and it's so much earlier than anything else. Where there's a 2013 Snoop Dogg from 8 Panini HRX, but that's so much like further in the future. We're talking 18 years in the future to have like a stiff cardboard. So I think this is kind of getting adopted as a rookie, even though it's a sticker. So
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I think it's got to be the first decent size release. Now, if it's a company made it for all their employees for like at a Christmas party and there's 20 of them, that might be considered, that's just a scarce card. I think to me, the rookie card, especially on the non-sports end, is going to be their first appearance on whether it's a decent sized sticker or a full-fledged card. And that's how I would view it. You got to set some sort of parameters. But you brought up a couple great points. Number one, with these non-sports issues, these celebrities, these musicians, actors, actresses, they don't make cards every year. These aren't like sports where they have a season and stats and that they have their own things they're doing every year. But in the card, and let's be honest, they're not going to be as popular as a baseball or basketball or football card. So there's not a demand to do one necessarily every year. But I think that also lends to some of the nostalgia for it, because they weren't in demand at more. I think they're more in demand now after their release time than when they were actually issued. And how many of these things got thrown out, destroyed, and now we're going back. I give you a lot of credit for leading this charge. Now we're going back and trying to figure these things out, and you're doing a lot of that that legwork. Like, hey, what's the and I think by you doing what you're doing too, Corey, other people are like, hey, how about this guy? I'm a fan of this guy. I'm a fan of this lady. I'm a Lady Gaga guy. I'll admit it, right? And you sent me what a copy of what's perceived to be her rookie card, and yep, there it is. You have one too. So that stuff, and that's fun. It's fun to kind of do the research and Google and eBay. Let's be honest, and eBay and like what and then find maybe something sort of obscure, like the what did you say, the Cobain, the first one, Argentinian. You know what I mean? How that's not going to be an easy card if you wanted to buy them all. That's going to be hard to do, and that I love that. I love that pursuit. I love that hunt. I love the research. You've got me doing a little bit with certain folks, and I'm not as good as you. I'm more likely to ask you, hey, what do you think, or what do you say? But that's great, and it's bringing back some of those obscure cards that people probably forgot about, and now we can go back and say, hey, and there's people probably say, I remember those. I remember the Yo MTV Raps packs and opening some of those boxes and some of those things. And you can go back to a time period. Yep, go ahead.
Yeah, there are certainly like just those little pockets of people that maybe had collected that, game or whatever that card comes out of. Now, you've brought up a couple of things that bring up a couple of points. One is great, like, so grading. To me, that's important. Can I get this card graded? Is it licensed enough? Some of these are like semi-licensed where they, maybe they got the rights to the photo or that they made their own designs or whatever, but they didn't license. They didn't get the rights from the person. Some of that doesn't matter after, say, 50 years. The card companies will still grade it.
Yeah.
But that's key, is being able to find out if you can get it graded. I have something in front of me right now, which I'm still not sure if I can get graded yet. I haven't tried it yet, but I have to work on it. And it also touches back on like getting known for something. So like being known for non-sport right now does have people, asking me questions, which I love to like dig in and try to help people, find rookies and stuff where I can, if I have the bandwidth. But people come to me with like, hey, have you seen this rookie? Or do you think this is the rookie? I'm like, holy cow, I never saw that before. And so like, that's what this is. So this, what I'm holding here is a Dynamite Magazine it was made by Scholastic in 1978.
Yeah.
It has the Bee Gees and the Beatles on the cover. And this is going to blow you away, John. It's not the Beatles. It's not the Bee Gees that are in here. Inside of this set, they made some kind of like farcical trading cards. And so I'm opening up and showing the cards that are still inserted in there. They're perforated, so I'll have to tear it out to actually like get it graded. But there's a gentleman here who goes by the name of Motormouth. He's like a DJ. But the person representing that guy is Howard Stern. Howard Stern doesn't really have cards that I know of. Certainly not from 1978. And so again, this is a stretch. Like, it doesn't use his real name, but man, when like it's that early and that far ahead of anything, or even, I don't even know if he has cards again, like to have a 1978 Howard Stern. And so like, that's a big thing on my list right now, is to start working on a video, go through that whole checklist of cards, send that to PSA, see if they'll grade it. Cause I would love to have a 1978 Howard Stern. I have a 1978 Howard Stern rookie, but I'll feel really good about calling it the rookie if, say, PSA and or SGC will grade it.
Yeah, the Howard Stern Motormouth rookie. Who knew, right? Who knew?
Right.
Everyone's looking at the cover. Oh, the Bee Gees, the Beatles, right? And inside is a hidden gem. That's truly called a hidden gem. You think the cover, is the masterpiece, yet there's a bigger one obscurely hidden inside. And those are the stories, Corey, and I remember stuff, every 2 weeks, I believe it was, I got the order form, the Scholastic order form, and you'd bring it home and like, hey, I want this, and I can't get everything, pick one or two, and it, that stuff just, it takes you back to if you're a kid, a time when you no bills and no problems and just having fun every day, and we can't go back for real. So to kind of go back, in memories is always fun. And, again, how many, you just showed that magazine with the Motormouth Howard Stern rookie. How many of those at this point exist? You know what I mean? How do we, there could be very few. I don't know how many of those they even printed of that
Hmm.
Dynamite magazine. That's the first thing. How many actually were printed in at the time of release, and then how many lasted? Here we are 43 years later, right? How many survived that 43-year journey? In your case, they're still intact in the book at this point, and so
Yeah. But
you
even mine
know,
are a little wrinkled. I'm still trying
yeah,
to shoot for a nice clean one. But that's exactly right, John. Like these, even if there was a high print run of that magazine, maybe let's say 12,000, 20,000, 50,000, who knows how many remain? Dozens. We
yeah.
don't really know exactly. But I mean, I was a Boy Scout. We did magazine pickup drives, right? And they'd drop you off on a
Uh,
block, and you go around knocking on doors to pick up magazines to help get some money for your troop and that kind of stuff. But we talked about weird cards and stuff. So this is a wrestling card. This is I got into wrestling cards quite a bit too because like
yeah,
I went back to my youth in the 80s. 80s for me was all about TV dinner, playing sports and stuff as a kid, but collecting baseball cards, but also watching wrestling on Sunday mornings and Saturday mornings, eating TV dinners, all that stuff. But um, going into the 90s, Stone Cold Steve Austin
yeah,
obviously was a big star along with The Rock. But his rookie actually comes from Argentina as well. It's from a set called Chromie. And I ended up buying, and this is kind of a good tip for non-sport, is rather than like focusing on the individual card where you might have to spend $1,000, $2,000 to pick up this card. I bought a full set of the
yeah,
1991 Chromie. It's a game set, like a card game, and that was like $500. Got this graded, and now I got a much better value for myself that way to get myself into a stunning
yeah,
Steve Austin card. So before he was Stone Cold, he was known as Stunning Steve, and this was like a game set out of Argentina, and so that was like a neat way
yeah,
to pick that one up to go with. I kind of have a collection of Stone Cold Steve Austin cards now to go with my Rock collection, and then of course Andre the Giant, some of those old guys that I grew up watching. But the game card thing is, like the Elon Musk card or the Lady Gaga card, those are both game cards as well. And you
yeah,
talk about game cards, like even if they, in the case of like the Elon, we know they only ever made 3,000 of those, but how many end up at camps? How many end up in families where the kids are tearing them apart? They'll never surface
yeah,
again. So if you can get some of those old game cards, it's a fun way to go. And then talk about another card that's I think kind of surprised some people in terms of beating some of the other cards was a Beyonce. There's a
yeah,
2003 game card from Smash Hits that has a 2003 Beyonce rookie. It's a game card, but there's also like 2000 SI swimsuit Beyonce cards that some people are collecting. Those are cool too, but this one beats it by 4 years. So and I have some of these on the way to PSA right now to be graded. So
yeah. Well, that's a good segue. You mentioned the card I wanted to talk about. I'm proud to say and honored and thank you again to have one of what I call it the Elon Musk 50. You sent me that a few months ago. You acquired, you just talked about the top Trump Elon Musk. Well, classified as the rookie card. You had them all graded. Mine is a 9.5, and then I know you kept a few, I believe, and then you sent out the other. They're all blockchained, and you kind of gave me a heads up. Hey, and one thing I loved what you did about it. It's easy. I don't want to say it's easy. No, it's not easy, but you can mail someone a card, send someone a card, but you also all these are blockchain and numbered, and the people you gave certain numbers. There's a method behind your madness, and in my case, it was 42 for obviously Jackie Robinson, and the thought process. To be that thoughtful to give someone a card like that, but even with the whole blockchain number, what the significance of the numbering to go to that level with it. I want to have the man himself sort of talk about the story behind that, how you either acquire, if you can, how you acquired them, and what made you come up with that giving that people to. I know a lot of content creators and the such, and then I know I think you just recently did one at charity auction, so definitely talk about that as well. I'll shut up and listen to you.
sure. No, I was, of course, had to include you in that, and know, your great affinity for Jackie Robinson as that we share as well, of
Yeah.
course. And so 42 had to go your way, John. And so the thought process initially, this kind of was inspired out of that I had this. I'm not an NFT guy, really. I've never, even though I'm kind of dabbling in the space, not buying, but creating, is that it didn't make a lot of sense to me. You know, it's like I can see it. I can see like how it could happen with my kid playing Fortnite and like he values these digital things so much, buying skins and all that stuff, right? But you know, I'm like, how are us regular guys going to get there? There's got to be some kind of bridge. And so in my mind, I'm thinking like, I don't know where that bridge is going to come, but I think it's going to be what's called phygital, meaning like digital and physical, some kind of transition there. And so I thought, well, maybe the grading companies could be that point where.
Now, did you just invent that word, or did you hear that? I gotta.
Ivan from Watch the Breaks is the one that cued me into it, but evidently it's a real word that people use.
Okay.
Phygital. I know it sounds ridiculous, but I'm going with
it. I like it. I was going to give you credit. Like if anyone else says it, you got to pay YamWax some dough. So, but go ahead.
Yeah, like Pat Riley and the the three-peat. So no, yeah. So it was like possibly it'd be the grading companies that could create that point where they're already taking pictures of cards. When, you know, say SGC grades your card, they send you a picture. Yeah. Well, what if they sent you just an NFT that said, hey, here's your title to the card? And I'm like, I don't think the grading companies are going to be, I don't trust them to experiment with this anytime in the next year or two. It's probably years away to them even thinking about doing that. And I'm not even sure they can licensing wise in the future. It might actually be the manufacturers that create those NFTs. We'll see what happens, right? Who knows if even, you know, Fanatics, we can talk about that in a minute, but whether they'll grade their own cards, then it'd be easy for them to create the NFTs with them. But I'm thought like, well, I'm going to look for a rookie card, what I consider a rookie card of some kind that nobody has ever graded before. Like, you know, I occasionally do discover these things where I could create something where I could create the experiment. Why don't I try it? So I did find, again, kind of through the help of a friend, and gifted them the actual number 1 out of 50. He's a private collector, so I've kept his name private. But he got one of the Elons because he's the one like, hey, have you seen this Elon Musk Top Trumps card? I don't think there's any other Elon Musk cards. And there were kind of some, like, again, Garbage Pail Kids and some like art cards and stuff. But I'm like, no, I hadn't seen that. And like, there are none graded by anyone. And I thought, this is it. This is the card. And I went and I just bought right from their website before they had sold out. They've had it for sale for a couple of years now, since 2019. But you know, that must have been right at the end of their product run. And I just made an order for 84 of them. And I took the best 50 out. I opened up all the packages. I've got the game card set right here. This one is one that I've, you know, of course, opened and pulled all the Elons out, graded the 50 best, and then I numbered them in the order that they were graded. And so while they're out for grading, I started making my list, John, like thinking of all the people I appreciate, people creating content, creating community, creating platforms, and then the handful of collectors that have really been integral in like helping me, even if they're private. So a few went to private collectors, and then I gave away all of them. The only one I kind of kept went to my son, but it really is like his. It's in his room, and he knows it's his and everything. So basically all were gifted, and he's like, I appreciate him as much as anyone, my little guy, because he's the one that pulled me back in. So he had to get one for sure. But yeah, I numbered them, and this is like one of the last ones that I have on hand. It's number 26 out of 50. That's the one I'm still trying to get to Elon Musk himself. And that designates 2026, the year that he plans to get to Mars. It's an audacious goal, but I really respect people that set audacious goals like that. So it'd be neat if, you know, this ended up in his estate or museum or whatever. Yeah. And then the NFT thing was for the learnings. Like, so it was a really neat experience to create these NFTs, to be able to like learn how to do that, how to gift them. They're all royalty free, gas free. So I make nothing off this project. It's all about giving back, showing appreciation, and then learning a ton. So we'll see what's next. You know, I learned some NFT stuff, and now I'm kind of, you know, playing around with the next step ideas with some of that stuff. But yeah, it was just a great experience.
Yeah, and super generous and unselfish of you, I might add. I know you might not say it, but I'll say it you know, on your behalf. And 42, I know it's not on screen here. I have to post something on social media, but 42 of said card is in this acrylic case that sits on my desk. I see it every day, and it's a reminder every day of the greatness of the hobby, the great people we have in it, such as yourself, that are giving not just with material things, but with information, knowledge, and an advocate and an ambassador. Two words I like to use. I think it's important to be those for others, and you embody that. And again, I thank you. And someone asked me, Corey, like, hey, that car, I saw that listed at this, and you should sell it. And I'm like, no, that was given to me. I don't believe it. I joked even with you, even if I ever had thought of doing something like that, I would talk to you, and I still, even though you gave it to me, I still feel you're a part of that card. And so, I don't, it's not listed anywhere. I just did a show this weekend, and it was still in the desk case here, and that's where it will stay, and means a lot to me. And you kind of hinted it was coming, but kind of opened that package up and getting it, seeing the 42 blockchain registry on it, and the thought process there even made it all the more special to me. And those stories, again, it's those kind of things I don't care what eBay says or what this person says. You can't put a price on certain things, and that's one of those type of cards. And at least for me, and I appreciate it. I love it. It's it speaks to who you are, which is a generous, great person who thinks about others. And I try to do that myself. And I think we need more of that. We have a lot of people doing it, but can never have enough. So it's a great example.
It's a great hobby.
Yep, it is. So
it was a great experience, great adventure. And I wanted to say something with that, like going back to that 1997 Tomy Pokemon cards I gave out, like none of that works. Like none of spreading your enthusiasm works if you're not authentic about it. Like I really did love the art of these cards. I love the rarity of them. I love the chase of trying to, you had to find them in Japan and like really scour to find these. So it was like that. I actually thought they were that interesting, and I had I had a story that I thought was good with sharing with my friends. And, of course, like I bundled in the NFT and and graded all these cards and everything. That's neat. But if I actually am enthusiastic about collecting tech entrepreneurs, and I think Elon Musk is going to be a really important person. Love him or hate him, an incredibly important person of this generation. And I like the aesthetic of the card. It's also all that also lends to it. But I'll say, like, if the card ever does, like, if this is seen as part of an important, not important, but just happens to be thought of as like an early NFT card project and people do really well on it, I'll be ecstatic for you, John. And if you get that outcome somewhere years down the road, but I appreciate that. And the feedback has been awesome. So you'd mentioned the one that went to auction. I completely donated that. Like Ken Golden, of course, is so important. Again, love him or hate him or whatever. He's so important at selling our hobby, right? I know people have a lot of opinions.
No, it's true.
They do, but he's out there pitching on CNBC and Fox Business and on
he's
ESPN.
Ambassador.
He's got a show coming up.
Right?
Like he's
ambassador.
So important.
Yep.
Yeah, ambassador, and he's on the phone with people. I mean, I think people take that for granted too, like how much he's on the phone with these really
on the
high
show
with
me, and so he's made time for this show. I can't knock him there. And he's a great ambassador. But go ahead, I know you put one of those on his Golden's auctions, but go ahead and tell that story.
He would be someone who I would like to include in this project, but I didn't know that an Elon Musk rookie card is something that fit in Ken's collection of Babe Ruth cards and stuff. Like a lot of other big collectors got them, I appreciate it, but I thought like these are people who had fun with them. I didn't know that read about Ken, but I'm like, as I was thinking about it, I kept like putting Ken on the list and then taking him off. And ultimately I'm like, you know what? I'm going to grade one with PSA because, again, it's important to me to like make sure a card can be graded. So I wanted to get at least one, pay to get one graded, and I had to Super Express it at the time because that was all that was open. Yeah. And so I like wanted to make sure I paid to just like prove like this is a legit card, get it graded at PSA. So I had that one card. It was the 51st ever graded because I graded those first 50 of them with SGC just due to cost and time and everything, right? But the 51st one, I'm like, well, this one doesn't have an NFT attached to it, but I'll gift it to Ken as a consignment. I gave it to him at the National. Ken actually, he has, I still need to bug him to find out which charity it went to, but he said he was picking a charity for the proceeds to go to, and that sold for, I think, just over $1,200.
Wow.
Proceeds going to charity, and that's what it's all about. It's like, hey, like, let's do this for something good. I've got this. I kind of consider it the end of the project. I want something to go to Ken, and this is like, a fun way to do it.
Yeah, and like you said, a lot of people are gonna, depending on what charity, if it's a charity, it's gonna go to a good cause and help somebody out, and that's again paying it forward. And I'm a karma guy. I don't know if you are. I think you might be, but I believe in it. Some people might say you're silly, John. It's just a 5-letter word, but I'm a karma guy, and I think that stuff comes back around. I don't think you should do it necessarily for those reasons, but I believe in it, and I think it's a good thing. And you got a lot of karma coming your way, and believe it or not. So awesome stuff. And we're coming kind of down the stretch here. I want to just briefly. I won't rehash everything. And by now, everyone's pretty much aware of the Fanatics licensing with the baseball, football, and basketball. Upper Deck at the moment is still going to remain hockey. I hope that does stay that way as well. Just a couple minutes from, and the reason I definitely want to hear your take on it, Corey, is just because you seem to really, I don't know if you have some sort of crystal ball you're not telling anyone about. You kind of see these trends and things a little bit ahead of the curve, if you will. We all know what's transpired so far, but how do you think this sort of plays out? The nice thing about answering this question is there's really no wrong answer. It's your opinion. So, I mean, what do you think happens here in the next few years and maybe even past that point?
Yeah, well, I will start out with that just to say that, of course, none of us know. Any guesses we're making are almost sort of ridiculous.
All speculation.
No inside information, no anything like that. Of course, I'm just a guy in the hobby like everybody else. But I have a business background, so I love thinking about strategy of those things, and it's really neat. We're going to have so many Harvard case studies that are going to come out of the hobby just over these last 2 years, right? Like from the PSA shutdown. I mean, this might be a Harvard course about how Fanatics took over
business during the pandemic, how a hobby went through the crash through the ceiling while other businesses went the other way, unfortunately. Yeah, there's so many things that can be, dissected, if you will, on a business scale. So, but go ahead.
So I'll take this from a couple of aspects. One, which is just like my gut feeling and kind of where things will go. And then two, why this isn't necessarily bad for the hobby. We don't know for sure, but I'd like to take the optimistic viewpoint that, it could be good. So let's just play with that for a minute. But my guess is that the way everyone thought the way into the card market was going to be to buy Panini. We heard about Alex Rodriguez, maybe forming up a SPAC to come in and buy Panini. Well, that all blew up when the licenses went kaput in the future for Panini and Topps. And that would have been a multi, I don't know, $5-6 billion takeover. I'm not quite sure what that number would be. A lot of cash. The end around on it, this amazing, whether it's conniving or whatever you think about it, it really was an incredible execution from a business stance, is to go in and collect all these licenses all at once, and to not even have anyone else at the other companies and the investors to be aware of it is incredible. It blows my mind that not more.
I almost think they almost, maybe not right away, but years from now, it would be a great movie how all these working parts did this and never got out, and they pulled it off. Whether you like the deal or like you said, or you don't like the deal, the fact that they could pull it's like Ocean's whatever number 12 or 13. Everyone had a different. Let's go in. You have the ID card. You scan it. I'll knock the guard out. We'll meet back here. Don't get hit by any of the red lasers, and nothing went off. No alarm bells. I hate to say it like this, but Topps Panini never, at least they're saying they had no idea this was going on. And then, everyone met back at the hotel room and divvied up briefcases and went on their merry way. Now I'm using dramatics there, but it has that sort of feel like a caper, right? Everyone, they pulled it off, right? I'm sure even themselves, Corey, like, hey, this is what we got to do. This has to stay QT. Don't tell your wife that we're having these discussions. Don't tell your cousin. Don't even sleep talk. Put duct tape over your mouth when you're sleeping. I mean, all sorts of, to not have one person. All it takes is one person to screw this up. You could have 10 people involved, 100 people involved, 5 people involved. It only takes one person to slip on a banana peel, and then the cat's out of the bag. And
yeah, the team was there. I just want to say, like, hey, to the Fanatics team, to Luber, to those guys, if you're looking for a guy to be in the inner circle, I did not spill the beans on John's show. And I did not, even tell my kids at the arcade at the birthday party that I was going to get to interview Dr. Puckett. So,
and I'll vouch just for a consulting role. I'll vouch for Corey on that as well. So
no, and let's call it Oceans 24. I was going to go 23 because it's such a goat number in sports, but 24. These guys are Philly guys, and that's where Kobe Bryant is from Philly, and I know Josh Luber himself played him in high school, so. We'll go back to their Philly roots called Oceans 24. But no, I think I think the end around is to buy Tops and Upper Deck. I mean, Upper Deck is pretty heavily. Chris Carlin just came out and said, like, we're not even like thinking about that. We're not talking to anybody. But we'll see what happens. We got a few years to go. Maybe it's not both, maybe it's one or the other, but I think some of those brands are going to get acquired, and they're going to be able to create card brands and bring on teams. I think the teams are as important as the brands, but I think to us as collectors, having a legacy of the brands is really important. But if they don't, I mean, they'll hire great designers and people and create new brands. But I have a feeling it's going to be like Tops and or Upper Deck. And maybe eventually acquire some Panini brands, because Panini is not going away. They're going to want to continue, I'm guessing, to keep making all the other niches that they're in that Fanatics hasn't acquired. But we'll see what happens. But again, I'm all guessing. Apologies to those people at those companies, because I think really care about them. Of course, distribution is this huge question. I think we're going to see a lot of things possibly at least be experimented with coming under Fanatics roof, from direct distribution platforms. Possibly grading. Cards come out and you can have them graded. You can have them put right on their platform, never even receive them. That sounds crazy, but a lot of us are doing that already. We're getting cards, having them sent to a vault, and then selling them from there, maybe keeping them for years and then selling them. But many cards aren't in our hands anymore. So it's going to be wild to see where that all goes. I think that's enough to touch on with that. But where I'm optimistic about it, where I think, we're like, it sucks to have a monopoly, right? They own not just everything in one sport. And we were already kind of upset about that. Like where Panini, had the basketball license and no one else could make licensed basketball cards, et cetera. And now they can make it for almost every major sport. Like, this doesn't sound good. Well, I guess I ask you to look back at, say, like those 50s Tops sets and artistry. Yeah, there was Bowman and there were some different brands and stuff, but I don't think the competition was important there. I don't even think like the cards were as important to the market. And those guys were selling gum. The cards were a bonus, right? But it's about pride, and it's about execution and leadership. I think, again, it's rumored that Josh Luber is going to run this division, but the rumors are pretty strong. I think like that's somebody who really cares about cards. He has a vast collection of sports and non-sport cards too. And he really cares about design. I can tell he's into art just based on his Instagram page. He's regularly collaborating with artists, supporting artists, and I love to see that. And so I think like you can have great design and innovation especially, come out of just like we need to show pride. But competition is still there too, John. You have they're going to be competing with other products in the marketplace. We see NFTs rising right now. Josh knows well enough that there are people that will go and collect shoes or whatever the next collectible du jour item could be, right? I hope to God it's not VHS tapes, because that type of media was the worst. But in my experience as someone who grew up with VHS, I hated using VHS tapes. But anyway, that's an aside.
Well, I hope it is, because I got like 3 giant boxes full of them in my basement collecting some dust. So I hope that does blow up, because no, some of them might be, but I think the majority of them aren't. So
I think it's the sealed stuff that people are into. I mean, I could even see like cassettes or like, of course, vinyl and some of those things blowing up. The VHS thing really surprises me, because I just do not have a positive nostalgia for that, for those things. But I hear you, man. but anyway, I think there's competition from other collectibles, and they know that they have to produce great products. They have the players involved now. They have the teams involved,
Yeah.
and you get those groups breathing down your back if like people aren't excited about the production. And now I guess another benefit is that we do actually have a number of players, not anywhere near the majority, even like 80% of them, but there's a handful of collectors from every sport that will also, I think, continue to push. So I don't know. I think there's reason for optimism that a good company can create great products even without someone pushing them within that niche.
Yeah, I agree. I come from a sentimental angle. I'm not even saying this is right. This is just sort of sentimental. I'm a Brooklyn, New York kid, born and raised, home of Tops, and grew up. That's how I got in with that 79 Tops pack. So the sentimental guy in me just is scared. I guess I don't know if scared is the right word, but maybe fearful that we're going to have years without baseball cards having those 5 letters on them, the TOPPS. And I can't remember a year, and not while I've been alive, that hasn't, that's been the case. And so it's that unknown, right? So something you're not uncharted water. So you mentioned the possibilities that maybe Fanatics buys those 2 companies. I'm not opposed to it. It don't matter what I think, but I'm fine with that if it keeps those brands and companies' legacies going forward. I'll appreciate that. But I've heard other rumors, and like you said, and we both said, all of this is speculation, rumor. And, I ask everyone on in recent weeks their take on this, and none of the answers. It's like fingerprints. None of the answers are exactly the same. They might have similarities to it, which I love, because we all have different takes on it. But I'd like to see those brands survive. Maybe some people not necessarily lose their job. As someone who lost one recently myself, I know that feeling. I don't want anyone else to have to deal with that if they don't have to. And so I hope things work out for the best. I'm going to be in the hobby regardless of which way this road goes. And I'd be lying if I said it's not going to be fun and interesting to keep tabs on what's next, what story breaks next, what announcement gets released next. And this is obviously a hot button topic, but we fail to realize, like, this is going to be 2 or 3 years before we actually get anything of real substance as far as production. This is all just the pieces are moving around on the chessboard, but the game hasn't even really sort of started yet. And so it's as someone who's been in the hobby a long time, this is the interesting part, to see what happens next. First, it was Tops in the baseball license, and then we went to basketball and football, and who knows, right? We don't know what's going to happen next. It's that edge of your seat. It's like a movie, right? It's like a cliffhanger. Like, what, this part, like, we jump out of our seat, like, holy smokes, that was insane, right? And then, like, what's next? Because this is not the end of the movie yet. Like, something else is going to happen here. And so it's that I find the most interesting. But again, the sentimental Brooklyn kid in me is hoping that the Tops legacy, specifically, and Panini too, but being from Brooklyn, I have an affinity for those 5 letters. And listen, they're culpable in this too. I don't want them to be all unicorns and flowers, and they made some mistakes. I think they left that door open, obviously, for this to happen. So I'm not trying to make them out to be can't do anything wrong, but that long history, I hope, gets to live on in some capacity. If it's under the Fanatics umbrella, then that's the way it's got to be, and that's the way it can be. But I hope that happens.
We have this long runway, like you mentioned, a couple of years to go, and so that's a lot of time to sit and stew and bile and worry about. Of course, if you're employed by those companies, I'm sympathetic to that, and I'm really hopeful that they do carry on. Those brands will carry on. That's, as a collector, that's part of my, why I'm guessing that way. Because there's a couple of different ways we could, or many different ways we could put that conjecture out about what's going to happen. But if we have years to go, I'd like to lean on the optimistic side because I don't have any control over it, and in the end, it's like, as a collector, our good buddy, Peter Pac-Man, what a great guy. He had this viral hobby video about like changes. I can't remember what it was, but some crazy change in the hobby at the time. And he just kept, I think it was just prices dropping. So, but he had this one where he kept showing signs that said like, maybe prices go down. We don't care as collectors. Prices go up. We don't care as collectors, just about, right? We just keep collecting. And so another worry I've heard about, both in the interim with, say, Topps and Panini, maybe just overproducing, because what do they have to lose? Might as well just print a bunch while they're in this
get the money period. And run.
And then Fanatics just being like, well, they're going to blow it up, go retail, print like crazy. Well, maybe, but we're collectors, so we'll find the avenues. We'll find the short print inserts that are fun for us to collect. Maybe we go back in time. Maybe you collect something. You're someone that likes to always open modern packs. Well, maybe look at like 2017. Find something interesting. There's always avenues for collectors, and we'll find them, and we'll keep, I think, having fun, even if there are these other concerns and worries. But again, my heart goes out to those involved in the hobby whose lives are going to change. I hope that they can find a great landing spot if they don't carry forward with the new company.
Yeah, no doubt. I'll echo that. And, I remember when the news story first broke with the Topps one first, and my initial reaction, I was sort of angry. I don't even know at who, Corey, just a general feeling. And I remember I saw some, not my post, but I saw some other people on social media. If this is the way it's going to be, I'm not going to buy new cards. Some people were saying I'm just getting out fully. Some people just said I'm not going to buy any kind of Fanatics brands releases. I'll go back, and that's the thing. You can hobby any way you so choose. If I'm not going to be that guy, but the last couple of years I've sort of pivoted of heavy vintage or heavier vintage anyway. So I don't open as much of the new stuff as I once did. So it really is not when I really took a step back and like looked at the situation, I'm like, it's probably, I'm getting all worked up about it and fired up about it, but it really doesn't affect me as much as I'm making it out to be, as I've really kind of focused on some of those vintage and cards that are already been printed, and going back and acquiring that stuff and more of that stuff. And I just hope, I just think, as an advocate, as an ambassador for the hobby, I consider myself those two things, that the hobby still stays, is okay in their hands, so to speak. Mm-hmm. And I know that sounds weird. You say in their hands, they're holding the majority of the major sport licenses. So they do control a lot of the pieces on the playing field. And so they do have a lot, they're going to have a lot of power when all these contracts come into play officially. And I hope they do the right things. I hope they have collectors, at least in the back of their minds, in some of what they decide to do, because we're the folks that are going to either support or not support their products either way. And I hope they realize that and make, with that, keep that collector's mindset in mind. You mentioned, Josh Luber is a collector. Hopefully that cream rises to the top, so to speak. And, but we see it's a lot. We've seen this hobby go the way, and it's just not just the sports card, but just business in general, right? Money talks. These are big money deals. Now the players have a seat at the table like they never did before. They have equity stake. I'm not even saying that's wrong. It's probably maybe should have happened already. It's their name and likenesses on that cardboard or chrome. I just hope that the collectors are not sort of an afterthought, and we're still trying to build and promote and produce products with them at mind too, not just the athletes and their bottom line and that sort of thing as well. There's got to be a balance, I think, between both of those worlds, the professional athlete world and the people like us who consume and purchase those products that those athletes appear on. And I think if they can do that and want to do that, make that kind of concerted effort, I think it'll be all right, and even more than all right. And I hope that's what happens. I guess my fear, and like you said, to worry about it for the next 2-3 years is kind of silly, but that's how my mind works. And so, I'm going to do it, and I just hope the right thing happens. And there's going to be some casualties from every kind of business decision, but I hope when all the smoke and dust settle, the smoke clears and the dust settle, I hope the casualty list is shorter rather than longer, and the hobby is still thriving and doing well and set up for continued long-term success. We're going to see. This is all speculation. We could do 2 more hours of this, and nothing's going to change in that 2 hours. It's just conversation. But I hope that's what happens. Go ahead.
One last thought is just, I'd mentioned, like, what am I going to do? What am I going to do over the next 2 to 3 years to make an impact on this? Probably, we probably aren't going to have an impact. It's not up to us at the moment, but it is up to us once Fanatics does roll out, right? Like, that's where the market, we have buying power. We can go in and buy a bunch of boxes or not, if we're not happy with, the way it's being distributed. Now, they may be opening up new channels and different buyers and stuff. And then, things will change. But as collectors, it's going to be on us to some level to go out and buy the products that, reward the great products that they make. And that's how we are going to have an impact. Yeah, maybe not in the interim, but once they launch, like, let's get ready to support the great products, and maybe, let them know with our dollars the practices and the products that we don't appreciate, if that's, the case.
Yeah, bingo. That's the first. Bingo. You're exactly right. I've said that. When people talk about even the grading spear, oh man, the submission prices are too much now. Stop subbing, then the prices will come down, right? So we do have that power. I think either people forget, or either one or two things. I think people don't realize it, forget, or don't care, and they just FOMO, right? I got to do it now. I don't care. Yeah, I'm supporting it, and it's me supporting it won't get any changes done, but it is what it is, kind of thing. But you hit it right on the head, Corey. We do have that power. It's just whether enough of us want to yield that stick and whack it enough, and we'll see. We'll see. Again, we got a couple years. I'm sure we'll have more discussions between now and that time, but I appreciate you sharing a lot of your insight. I value it highly. Some of that stuff you're doing, even outside the sports card realm, touched on that as well. I always give the guest, as always, the final say. Give out where people can find your social media, website, anywhere they can. You want them to find you. Give out all that stuff. Take your time.
Well, I certainly hope to find people out at card shops, sports card shows. It was amazing to spend that hour plus with you at the National over some appetizers and drinks, and get to know each other face to face as the world opens up again. Keep our fingers crossed that we keep headed in that direction, or re-head in that direction, that we can all meet in person, because that is the greatest, when we come together with our like-minded interests. But in the meantime, I love connecting with people online. The people and the community are what it's all about for me. So I'm probably most active on Instagram, just at YamWax, YamWax, and then on Twitter at YamWax23. Somehow YamWax is taken on Twitter. So at YamWaxIG, YamWax23 on Twitter. And please reach out. And I love connecting with other collectors. So thanks so much, John, for having me on.
Oh man, you're welcome. And again, I'll echo that too. Meeting you in Chicago was a great experience, and that's important. I love the shows and traveling, and like you said, hopefully these numbers trend good, and we can get back to as much of that normalcy as we can. And support your local LCSs, and keep a great point as a former LCS guy myself, so love it. So again, Yam, thanks for coming on, giving you your own light here, not just as a co-pilot on another show, and appreciate you making some time for us. Keep doing what you're doing. It's very important. And you mentioned one thing, you were saying, like, hey, you've had CEOs and these guys and these important people, and doesn't matter what your title is, right? We put our pants on one leg at a time. I have a 7-year-old Parker Frederick King on the show. I've had my dad at 83 on this show. I've had CEOs and corporate folks, and we're all part of the hobby, whether you're 7 or 83 or anywhere in between. We all are vital. We all are in the fraternity together. Some of us are seniors, some of us are freshmen, but it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, we're all at the same school, the same fraternity, enjoying what we do, hopefully, and that's the main thing. And so I don't look at it like that. And glad to have you here on the show today.
Yeah,
Thanks.
that's all what makes it great, John. And this was a blast, buddy. I appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome. Yes, there you go. All right.